Hello and welcome to another Construct 3 tutorial. If you are new to the channel, make sure you hit that big red subscribe button and might as well hit that thumbs up while you are at it. In this series of videos, we are going to create moving platforms. There will be 3 videos because we have 3 different methods on how to approach a moving platform. These are fairly basic and easy methods. If you are just starting with Construct 3, this might not be a good first video because I'm not going to do a whole lot of setup. I have tons of other content that starts from the very beginning of knowing nothing about Construct 3 and walk you all the way through into creating complete full games. So in this first one, we're going to use the Sine Behavior built into Construct 3. We'll play around with it and make all different types of movement with our platforms. I'm just going to run through really quick what I already have set up that you see on your screen. So I have a project that is 854 by 480, and I have a viewport with the same dimensions. And then I have 2 layers, a background layer and a game layer. On the background layer, I have a tiled background, which I sized 128 by 128. And then I made this dark gray checker pattern. And then I stretched that across the viewport and locked the background. Everything else is on my game layer here. And we'll start with the ground object. I just made a brown 32 by 32 sprite, and then I gave it a solid behavior. And then I just set up some ledges and ground here. And then we have the player object, which is a 24 by 48 rectangle. And I filled it with this kind of orangish reddish color. And the origin point is in the bottom middle. And then I applied a platform behavior. And then these are the values I punched in for the platform behavior for our player object. And if you want to control your player with the arrow keys on your keyboard, just make sure default controls is checked. I personally like using W, A, and D for my left, right, and jump. So I left this unchecked, and then I added a keyboard object to our object types folder. And then in the event sheet, I set up this very simple, very basic code. Okay, so I'm still on my game layer here. I'm going to double click and insert a sprite. And I'm going to make this sprite 32 for the width and 16 for the height. I'm going to leave the origin point right in the middle. And I'll grab my paint bucket tool and I'm just going to give it like this bright pinkish purplish color. And I'll exit out of that. And I'm going to rename mine plat, call it sine, because we're going to use the sine behavior for this one. So let's make sure that we have our new platform object selected and add a behavior. And I want this first one here that says jump through. This will make it so we can still use it as a platform and land on it, but we can jump through it from the bottom, just like that. So a real easy way to get any object to move is to add a sine behavior. So if we edit behaviors, add new behavior, and scroll down to sine, and we have some options over here. If you have a subscription version of Construct 3, you have the ability to preview. You cannot preview in the layout in the free version. If you have the free version, you'll have to play to preview it, and you can see it's working. It's going left and right. But I'm just going to use the preview button here on mine, and we have a platform moving left and right. And that's because we have the movement set to horizontal. You can change this to a lot of different things. We can change the width. So it kind of has this stretch and squash effect. Same with the height. And we can scale it with the size and even the opacity. Can make it fade in and out. So different effects that can be achieved by playing around with what kind of movement you want. For this first one, I'm going to do vertical so that it moves up and down. And then down here we have magnitude, and this is how many pixels it is moving in a cycle. So if I unpreview this, this little dot right in the middle is our origin point. So with this behavior on there, it's going to move 50 pixels up and then back to the center and then 50 pixels down and then back to center. And that would be a full cycle. So it's moving 100 pixels in total distance in one cycle. And it is taking the period of 4, which is in seconds. So it's taking 4 seconds So if it starts right here, start 1, 2, 3, 4. So it takes 4 seconds to complete a full cycle. And then you have some other attributes you can play with over here. I'm not going to get into these in this video, but for now, I'm going to change our magnitude from 50 to 100. And I have a little bit of a problem here. It's going through our ground here, and I don't really want that. So I'm going to unpreview, and I'm going to move it up from where it starts. So I think that's better. I don't want it coming all the way and making contact with the ground. And then it's going a little fast for me. So I'm going to add onto our 4 and just make this 6 seconds. So that slows it down a little bit. That just means it takes longer to complete a cycle. And then I'm going to unpreview and I'm going to pull it over here because in the game, we can't quite reach that ledge. So if we play, I'll come over here and you see we can't make it up onto the ledge, but now we have a moving platform that we can jump through and jump on. And now we have a way to reach higher or other parts of our level. Okay, easy enough, right? Well, let's go ahead and take this same object, Control, click, drag out a copy. And this time, instead of vertical, I'm going to change this one to horizontal. And then if we play, now we have 2 instances of the same object on the screen, but one's moving vertical and one moving horizontal. And the reason is because each instance, even though these are all part of the exact same object that we created, we only have one object. We just copied out an instance, and the properties of this instance say move vertical, and the properties of this instance say move horizontal. That sounds pretty straightforward. Now I want to make one that moves diagonally. So I'm going to, with any one of these selected, I'm going to edit behaviors, add a new behavior, and scroll down and select another sign. So when I add this in, now we have our jump through, and we have the first sign that we added, and then the sign 2 that we just now added. So if I exit out of that, you see we have our 2 sign behaviors. If I click on this instance over here, we have both sign behaviors still. We have the vertical one that we were using to move this, and then the second one that we added has the default attributes. That's because when you add a behavior to an object, you're adding it to the object. So all instances, if I copied out like 50 of these, they would all have the same behaviors that we add. So let's actually play this and take a look at something. So our horizontal one, still moving horizontal. Our vertical one looks a bit wavy, almost a figure 8 kind of motion. It's not moving the way that I intended, but for now, I want to keep this one vertical. So I'm going to come over here to the sign behaviors, and here's our vertical with a period of 6 and a magnitude of 100. Here is sign 2 that we added later on, and it comes in with a horizontal movement period of 4, magnitude of 50. Well, I only want this sign to take effect. So what we can do is come over here to the second sign and say, we don't need you, and disable it. So now when I play, we have a vertical moving and a horizontal moving. And you can see the horizontal moving is stuttering and having some issues. And there's a good reason for that. That is because if we click onto the horizontal one, it is running both signs, and they both have different values. So we can do the same thing here. Here's the original sign we set up and the values that we want. I'm just going to disable the second one. And with this top one selected, I'm going to hold Control, click, and drag out a copy. And I'm going to put it maybe somewhere right about there. So you notice with only this one selected, we have an exact copy of our horizontal one. It has the same signs with the same values, and you'll notice that sign 2 is also disabled. So to make it move diagonally, I want both the horizontal and the vertical to take place at the same time. So I'm going to enable sign 2, so both of them are enabled. I'm going to change that to vertical. And if we play, we get what we had earlier with this one. It kind of has this wavy, ovalish figure 8 type of movement. Except this time it looks like it's going side to side more, where this one was going up and down more in its wavy motion. That's because the higher magnitude and longer period is in the horizontal movement. So the vertical cycle is taking place much quicker. Now, if we take the same values we have up here, a period of 6 and a magnitude of 100, and put that in here, period of 6, magnitude of 100, now they're both the same. The only difference is one's horizontal, one's vertical. And if we play, now we have a perfect 45-degree angle moving platform. So we have vertical, horizontal, and diagonal. Now, these two behaviors can be manipulated to get almost any kind of motion you're looking for. You can play around with these attributes and come up with your own motion if you're looking for something other than just horizontal, vertical, and diagonal. So we didn't have to write any code. All we have to do is add in a couple of values here and there, and the game engine does it on its own. So from this point forward, let's say you needed 10 more moving platforms in your level. All you would do is control, click, and drag out copies. And then for each copy you drag out, you just come over here to the behaviors and change the values in both sine behaviors to get the desired motion. And those values will only take effect in each instance. So each platform can have its own unique movement without having to create multiple platform objects. All right, that is it for this video. In the next one, we are going to start using the event sheet, add a little code, and we're going to make an orbiting platform. Make sure you're saving your project always. I don't think I've mentioned that in this video yet, but make sure you're saving, and I will see you in the next video.